Zootopia! A special segment of the Almost Daily Zencast. Hosted by the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. Let's talk Trump.
I'm not one to call people names, generally speaking, but when the shoe fits, when the label accurately describes someone, is it name calling? Where am I going with that? Demagogue, defined as a person, especially an orator or political leader, who gains power and popularity by arousing the emotions, passions, and critically, I think, the prejudices of the people. When you turn that into a verb, demagoguing, it is to treat and or manipulate a political issue to obscure or distort with emotions and prejudice. The internet is abuzz with a few things today. It's tearing itself apart between a trifecta of things. One, let's storm Area 51 meme party. This has been acknowledged, or at least it appears. I don't know, right? Like, I don't have all access press credentials. I don't know for sure, but I'm reporting to you what I have seen. It seems as though someone who claims to have been behind the original set of memes and the Facebook group, that it was all a gag. It was all just like, haha, what a lark. I'm just going to make funny memes. And, that's plausible. But it's exploded, right? It's exploded. That means a lot of people's eyeballs are on it. A lot of people's imaginations jumped right on top of that bandwagon and started making other memes about Area 51 and storming it. Here's some things I'd like to address about that. First of all, a lot of the people making memes in the secondary and tertiary and whatever you would call the quadrupleary wave of memes, because there was definitely these different waves as the memes evolved. The one common thread line, though, is that we're going there to Area 51 to touch alien booty. Through all the different variations of this let's storm Area 51, there was alien sex on the minds of these meme makers. That or keeping an alien as a pet. How adorable. Which is, of course, if they're sentient beings and you're keeping them as a pet, that's a form of slavery, right? Especially if they're highly evolved enough to be able to talk and express their will and decision-making processes. But I'm not going to get into that. I'm not even going to get into the alien sex problem. The real issue I have with it is that as the fifth wave of commentary came back, or the fifth wave of meme making around this, a form of retaliatory commentary started to creep into the memes. And two themes emerged there. One tragically got overshadowed by the other, I think. The first one, which I found powerful and meaningful and worth supporting, and thus I spent a good 30 or 40 hours over the last couple of days posting this at people. That's an exaggeration. I don't know how many hours I was doing it, but I know for a fact that I didn't do much this weekend because I had wanted to really just sort of I wanted to recover and I didn't want to, go out and do stuff. So I was on the internet in a sort of casual, I'm just going to see what's out there kind of way and comment on stuff kind of way. And anyways, what's my point? Right. One of the themes that emerged in the reaction to this wave after wave of memes about going to Area 51 and making fun of people who want to go to Area 51 and actually calling out people who have been to Area 51, or at least the outskirts of it. One of the themes and one of the memes, which I think was the only Area 51 meme worth a damn, is the one that reads, let's go to Area 51 and find out the truth about aliens. Me, let's storm the detention centers at the border and free those innocent kids. Them, and it's a picture of some kid's face going, those awkward faces. It's like 4 of them. The only meme out of the whole clusterfuck of memes that was worth a damn, in my opinion, because without calling it a distraction, it clearly pointed out what a distraction it was. The next theme, the one that I say tragically overshadowed this first one, was an overt calling out of the Area 51 storming party as a distraction. And there was multiple variations on it, but basically they commented along the lines of, isn't it interesting how this weekend all of a sudden storming Area 51 memes are just trending like crazy and distracting people from, the Epstein case? Now, I'm not trying to make this episode about the Epstein case because that's a whole other fucking can of worms. And we'll get to there. I'm not afraid of that topic. But it's not the topic I'm addressing here today. So, Area 51. First of all, let's just talk about that for a hot second. What is it? What is it really? And what is it people think it is? What do people think Area 51 is? They're convinced that it's where we detain or store or house aliens or alien technology or something like that. It is described as the most famous of top secret military bases. Now, I have a really simple sort of litmus test for bullshit. If we can Google it, if we can find articles about it, if it's commonly discussed on social media, then it isn't the deep, dark, horrible secret that everyone is calling it. It's a red herring. It's a distraction. Okay? Now, Area 51 is probably a legitimate, top secret military base, right? I'm not saying it's not a military base. It is. First of all, Area 51 is not what it's called. That's not officially the name. Do I have that name in front of me? No, because I don't give a fuck about what it's called officially. It's a big, huge, giant piece of property that the government owns, that the government protects. And here's the part I think is interesting, that the government seems to be willing to kill fellow Americans over. I mean, no one's been shot on the edge of Area 51, but I've seen plenty of videos that claim to be real American people attempting to get closer to the Area 51 gate than, those signs let you. Those signs on the road that say, hey, no more photography from this point out. You can't get any closer if you're not here on official business, etc. I found one yesterday randomly. Like, it came to me, it was just in the flow of things on the stream of social media walls. And it was these 2 guys on dirt bikes, I think, and they were on motorcycles designed for off-roading, and they had, what do you call those, GoPro cams, and they rolled up to these signs, and they were just getting ready to do whatever their shtick was. They were just starting to talk about the last time we were here, da-da-da-da-da, and then an unmarked white pickup truck with armed camouflage wearing, brown camo outfitted guards. I don't know if they were military police. I don't know if they were officially soldiers. I don't know what they were, but they were armed, and they were definitely presenting themselves as the representatives of authority in that moment, they stopped those guys and patted them down and, physically threatened them in terms of like, oh, I'm unsnapping the thing on my holster. I'm showing you that I'm willing to draw my gun on you. And no matter how you want to break that down, when anybody, I don't care who, anybody with a gun in a holster unsnaps it, puts their hand on it, and looks at you and tells you, to shut the fuck up and stop moving, that's a threat. That's a threat of imminent gun violence. If you don't comply with their orders, whether it's a criminal telling you to get the money out of the safe, or a police officer telling you to put your hands up in the air, if they're doing it with their hands on the gun and the buckle unsnapped, that is a threat of imminent gun violence if you do not comply. Now, there, somewhere else late in the wave of memes and other discussion about Area 51, there was definitely, the sort of like, hey, the government's not really on our side, are they? If they're willing to shoot you, if you want to go look at Area 51. Because, and now for those who aren't aware, the storming Area 51 thing, which declared itself a gag, I don't want to say a hoax, but rather just a meme party of funny joke memes about rallying a large group of people and then trying to en masse enter Area 51. It's, on its face, kind of moronic, because if you really, really, really think about it, if we were to do that, right? If we were just to show up in large numbers and then just start walking towards the front of Area 51, we would be confronted by, I guess, arguably military police, or let's just say military personnel, armed military personnel, that would need to enforce their job of not letting people who are unauthorized enter this top secret facility. Now, I don't care what they have there for the purposes of this discussion. If they have aliens, if they don't have aliens, I do not pretend to know the answer. I do not pretend to know the answer of whether or not there are aliens in real life or not. If there are, and any of them are peaceful and in alignment with the light, yo, hit me up. I'm ready. Beam me up, Scotty. Like, get me on that intergalactic council. Because I got some ideas, and I don't see nobody talking about these ideas yet. It's funny, though. I keep getting accused of just repeating mainstream media garbage. And I'm like, really? I don't see anybody on any mainstream media channel anywhere talking about healing Donald Trump spiritually. Okay? So for all you haters out there that keep throwing mockingbird propaganda accusations at me, you can go fuck off and you can go do some research, because ain't nobody on either side talking about practicing what Yeshua and Magdalena taught so that we can heal these corrupt-ass motherfuckers, not because they're evil enemies, but because they are our brothers and sisters and it is our calling to heal them, because they are the symptoms, the mirrors that reflect to us and show us the disease that is inherent in all of our society. You telling me MSNBC is talking like that? Fuck off. They're not. And I love you. I'm one of those people that can throw you the bird and do it with love, dude. Because we all, every once in a while, need to be told to fuck up, to fuck off. We all fuck up. We all need to get told to fuck off. And we all need to shut the fuck up and sit the fuck down and fucking meditate. And I can say that with love and with peace in my heart, because fuck is just a word and doesn't mean anything unless I use it with violence in my intent. Okay? All right, I digress. So Area 51 party. Let's gather and camp out in front of Area 51 and try to get in it. So some of the retaliatory commentary was like, forget that. Let's storm Washington and have our bloody revolution. Another variation was like, fuck Area 51. Let's storm the Federal Reserve. Let's storm every capital of every state. That would be the most logistically plausible if we were going to have a violent revolution, I don't think we would take everybody to Washington. I think we would, in our own localities, organize going to our state capital, right? I digress. I am not a proponent of bloody revolution. Fairly certain I've already rambled about that in previous episodes. And we'll put a pin in that and go back and make an episode about why I think, like a whole episode to go in depth, of why I think revolutions are a bullshit idea. Oh, that's threatening. That's crazy talk, right? Revolution is bullshit. It is. If it's violence, it's not really a revolution. Anyways, I've already talked about revolution and its relationship to the word revolve. So I'll leave that there for you to ponder and then, hopefully entice you to go find that episode down the list. I don't think it's a title episode, so you're just going to have to listen to all of them to find that bit where I rambled about that. But let's get back here to demagoguery and demagoguing and what a demagogue is. Now, it's easy to say Trump is a demagogue. Categorically, I think he fits the definition, right? He'd rather rally his base and encourage them to punch journalists than talk about intelligent policy that's going to solve problems. He'd rather rally the base and call the left communists who hate America than talk about policy that's going to solve problems. He'd rather call Mexicans rapists and murderers. Now, hold on a second. Do Americans never rape and murder? Of course they do, right? Do white people never rape and murder? Of course they do. In fact, white imperial supremacy is nothing but rape and pillage and murder. The entire history of the white race as empire is rape and pillage, theft and murder. Well, there's plenty of other things. I shouldn't say nothing but. It's riddled with. It's so built on the foundations of. So, is what I'm doing right now demagoguery? How do we draw the line, right? It's easy to not draw a line and just accuse everybody of demagoguery, of being a demagogue. Perhaps. I draw the line on whether or not facts are involved. The simple fact of the matter is that empire, as a historical record, is really truly riddled with rape and pillage, theft and murder, the stealing of land, the stealing of assets, the abducting of children, the torture of leaders that are opposed to the empire. That's a fact. So I don't think I'm demagoguing when I call out that fact. Now, if all I then did was push the button of be afraid, be angry, that I would cross the line. And I would cross the line into demagoguery. Where are Trump's facts? I don't know about you, but I watched a really huge plurality, if not a majority, of his rallies. It was painful. I didn't enjoy doing it. I felt dirty. I took a shower every night afterwards. But there were very little facts in any of his rally speeches. In fact, there's very little difference between one rally speech to the next, except the order in which the rambling chaos fell out of his mouth. His speeches, I think, can honestly be declared to be 90% demagoguery. He is busy rallying, ginning up, and getting his base angry and afraid. About whom? Their fellow Americans. Trump's entire agenda is to encourage Americans to hate fellow Americans over how to be an American. Now, I'm not accusing him of inventing that. That's one of the oldest bullshit demagogic ideas in the United States. Hey, only we know how to be Americans. You motherfuckers aren't American enough, so either you become like us, or we shoot you, or we hate on you, or we spit in your face, or, I don't know, we tell you to go back home to where you belong. Okay, so, I got sidetracked there. Donald Trump didn't really talk about Area 51 this weekend, right? but the social media world was on fire with it. And for a lot of people, I'm sure it was a much more interesting subject to go off about and to spend time, chitter-chattering about and joining groups over than any of the issues Donald Trump was neck deep in this weekend. But let me close up the 51 thoughts here. Here's my final thoughts on this event. It was a red herring. It was a distraction. There was a lot of joking about it. There was plenty of people willing to call out that ain't nobody going to show up to this shit. In fact, it was really awesome to see a bunch of theater nerds and a bunch of like local band nerds. Like I've got a small band, like garage band, not necessarily marching band. Retaliate with anybody who knows anything about organizing events knows that like 3 friends are going to show up out of this hundreds of people that RSVP yes, because that's the case. That's totally true. You got to show up in town. You post a thing on social media, 300 friends, support it, 200 friends say they're interested, 150 friends say they're gonna come, 7 show up. I mean, those are made up numbers, but you get my drift. Like, that's a true thing. It's hard to get people motivated to go places. Now, isn't it fascinating that a huge effort was made, whether it was joking or not, and sort of one of the nuanced but defining aspects of a PSYOP is that you can't quite tell you don't know how to tell. It's really hard to discern or to judge. I don't like the word judge, you all know that. It's really hard to discern or determine, let's say, if something is a joke or if it's a real fucking thing. And that was all over the place with this Area 51 thing. People making fun of people for not going to show up. Oh, no one's going to show up. And a lot of people rallying about how many people are really fucking down and have quadruple confirmed and that they're really going to show up. Here's my problem with the whole set, that whole cloud right there. First of all, if you can Google it, and if it's commonly known, and everybody on social media is talking about it, then it's probably a red herring. It's a false flag. It's something there to distract you from something else. They would not keep, I don't think, I could be wrong, and there were memes to this effect, like the sadness and shock and surprise of people getting into 51 and finding out that they got nothing there, or they've got humorously funny, irrelevant things there, etc. Or conversely, there were memes about with smug-looking, faces of people of the government going ha 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 ha. They got here and we already moved everything to Area 52. So there's that angle, right? Like, if there are aliens and if we've captured them and if we're holding them hostage somehow, they're probably not at Area 51. Because if they were at any point, or they might have been at any point, Area 51 became so commonly associated with that they should be smart enough to be like, oh, fuck, this is a thing, we better relocate, right? To something a little bit less openly discussed. So that just in case, if they get in, there's nothing there. So I think that's way more likely. Another thing, and this is for reals, yo, I don't know if there are or are not aliens, but statistically speaking, scientifically speaking, the odds that we are the only talking monkey type life form, humanoid, we talk and we shoot each other for fun kind of life form, that's silly. That's highly improbable. Statistically speaking, there's too many exoplanets, planets outside of our solar system, that fit the Goldilocks criteria of being just right for some form of life to evolve. So let's make an assumption here, for the sake of argument, right? Let's say, yes, aliens exist. Logic dictates that if aliens exist, there's a spectrum of what kind of aliens are out there. And that, not to humanify them, not to personify them, but given the vast array of different kinds of people, then there must be a vast array of different kinds of aliens. And I don't mean races. Anybody who's been paying attention to my show knows that I think race is a hoax. Race is a lie. We are one genome. Every human being on the planet is 99.999999999999999% genetically identical. And I don't even think I said enough nines there. We are literally less than 1% different from one another at the genetic level. But there's still an infinitely sophisticated and complex array of different kinds of people. And I mean identity. I mean, personality. So if there are aliens, then there must be different mentalities or identities or personality types or, archetypes of aliens. And if we accept that, then there must be peaceful aliens that just want to help everybody and make things better. There must be middle-of-the-road pragmatist aliens that don't agree with either end. And there must be crazy, sociopathic, I just want to win. I'm caught up in ego. I will eat whatever gets in my way. I will destroy you and rip your head off and swallow your spine kind of aliens. Okay? Let me tell you something. The reason I don't give a shit about storming Area 51 is because Akram's razor, if they've got more than one alien, one of those aliens is going to be like a predator type alien. And if we break in to let them out, that motherfucker's going to eat us all and take over the planet. That's why we have him on lockdown, right? Okay, but that's out there in the realm of like unprovable probability. It's probable, it isn't impossible, given all the things I just said about the scope and size of the universe and the number of planets that could have raised life. But we don't currently have, except in the realms of conspiracy theory, we don't have any open and commonly accepted hardcore proof of that. So it's probable but sort of unknowable at this point. Plenty of people claim to know, and I'm not trying to disrespect that. Plenty of people claim to have been abducted by aliens. I'm not disrespecting that. I believe that you believe that. I'm a little disappointed I haven't been invited to the party, because for a long time now I've said if they are loving, peaceful, enlightenment-oriented brothers and sisters from other planets out there, dude, invite me up. I'm ready. I got some wild, kooky ideas. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe my ideas aren't worthy. Maybe I'm not a good enough spokesperson for them. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I have increasingly been getting Facebook friend requests from people here on Earth that sort of identify as being members of the Intergalactic Space Council from outer space. So hey, maybe one of them really is an undercover other planet alien from this dimension. The incorrigible Mr. Zeppo, in my little bubble of like the fiction that I live in terms of, the literary world I come from, I technically qualify as an alien, but I'm not from a different planet. I'm from an entirely different universe, right? Which is exactly like your universe, except not. But that's a whole nother book. We'll set that over there in the go read my Wattpad. Because hopefully I'll finally get my ass in gear and crank out a lot of behind schedule chapters that are way overdue to be published. But for clarity, and for, what's that word? For, not just clarity, for, what do they use nowadays? For transparency. My podcast is 100% anchored in truth, reality as I can see it here. My story, as told in my literary publications, is of course quote-unquote fiction. And I'm not trying to be weird about it. Those are two things that coexist in my world and that I want you guys to enjoy from a, consumerism standpoint. But I digress. So that's all the problems I see with the Area 51 party. And lastly, of course, it took eyeballs away. It superseded the trending numbers of these other issues. What other issues? So this is a distraction. What are the things out there were we distracted from? Well, something else that was a rage on the internet is the revisited debate, is Trump a racist? The Q followers, just this morning, I just saw this before coming on the air, are pushing this agenda item that that Trump is a racism is a narrative, a brand new narrative that the left is pumping because they're desperate and they need something to talk about. And that's their distraction. And I have some heartbreaking news for all those Q fans. There's evidence going back to the early 70s, and probably before then. But I'm talking about like serious evidence as documented by court proceedings and court documents, because there have been lawsuits since the early 70s about how the Trump organization behaves with an apparent and, in my opinion, obvious negative bias against people of color. So, new narrative, my ass. The only people who think this question of Trump being a racist is some sort of new narrative are people who have not been paying attention at all to what kind of person and what kind of family, Donald Trump comes from. This is one of those questions I love to ask. How many people who support Donald Trump know that their family, because they're all immigrants, you guys, they're all immigrants. Trump is the son of an immigrant. Trump is an anchor baby. Or if not, he might be a second generation, third generation, child of immigrants. But I digress. Their name was changed. Their real name is Drumpf. It's very what's that term? Germanic. It's very much of the German language sounding. I did a little reading into that before, and I don't have it fresh in front of me, so we're going to have to put a pin in that and do a little mini rabbit hole exploration into when and where and why the name was changed. So we'll come back to that in a future episode. But I digress here. So is the Trump family racist? They're certainly not anti-Semitic, which people conflate, right? First of all, Judaism is not a race. Second of all, race doesn't exist, so there shouldn't be such a thing as racism, which is something that a pro-Trump defender threw back in my face. He's like, well, if race doesn't exist, then there's no such thing as racism. I'm like, I know, but people still commit racist acts. It's because racism is an ideology. It's not anchored in reality. It's an ideology that requires your blind faith. So, is there evidence that Trump is a racist? Yes. There's contemporary, fresh, new evidence. I mean, from the day he announced to this past weekend with his crazy tweets, that he is biased against and will use demagoguery, in other words, manipulating the people by whipping their emotions and prejudices up against people of color. And then, of course, he'll adamantly deny that he's a racist. Quote, there is not one racist bone in my body. Okay, then why do you vilify brown and black-skinned immigrants, but say zero about white-skinned immigrants? Why does your administration tear apart brown-skinned families? Why do the people working for you get away without you reprimanding them with all these atrocities against brown and black-skinned families in these detention centers, and there are zero white-skinned European illegal immigrants in detention centers? Mind you, there are millions of white-skinned illegal European immigrants here in America. That's a fact that you can look up. Go do the research, right? As the Trump base is so fond of throwing around, do your research, man. I'm like, well, yeah, but have you done any research, bro? Because you keep saying the same kinds of things that came out of the mouths of the demagogues on Fox News and Breitbart, etc., and you don't ever really have thoughtful commentary to answer the questions asked that challenge those talking points. You just start calling people names. That's evidence of not having actually done any research, in my opinion. I openly acknowledge when I haven't done research into something strong enough when I'm on my show, okay? I'm the first to tell you, you know what? I don't have that in front of me. I didn't look that up before I wanted to talk about it because this isn't, the day that I get a staff and and funding and I'm at a studio and I've got a team of people, boom, we're going to be on it. We're going to be fucking research every motherfucking word. And I'm going to speak, I'm going to keep speaking the truth to power, but I'm going to have way better evidence ready to go right at the top of the show. But I'm working with what I can right now. So I always encourage people to practice what they preach. I try to step up and practice the same thing. If someone says, you don't know what you're talking about, do some research, I will tell them, okay, yeah, you know what, you're right, I should. But here's what my opinion is now. That's what we're doing. We're discussing our opinions. Our opinions about whether or not something is a fact. We're not establishing facts. Facts establish themselves over time by remaining to appear to be true, despite a shift in context or transitions in perception. That's what makes a real fact, is that you keep coming back to it and you keep measuring the same way. Opinions aren't facts. Opinions are opinions, and they're allowed to change, for the better or for the worse. My opinion is that at the very best case, Trump is most certainly a demagogue. All right? And he's most definitely, an aspiring profiteer. He hasn't done a very good job, and the financial history that is available in public record bears that out. His companies kept going into foreclosure. Now, some people argue that that's some sort of 7-dimensional chess game in business. I'm like, okay, but I don't understand that because it keeps forcing him to get money from other people and borrow money, and he's not earning money. He's not generating capital. He's accumulating debt. Now he's apparently, at this point, ever since approaching the run for office, he's been, taking influence money from all over the world. What's that clause? It's one of the earliest memes about Trump I made after he announced, emoluments clause, emoluments clause, emoluments clause. I'm actually amazed that he hasn't already been impeached over that, because that's the most jaw-droppingly obvious thing. From that building that used to be a post office to, foreign entities buying units at the Trump Tower. And, the gun lobby rescheduling their some event that they were going to have to his golf courses. The fact that he promised up and down to relinquish his business ties to his direct personal business, which is something that I think is technically required by law. I could be wrong about that. I'll admit it. I'm not sure if it's a tradition, like revealing one's taxes, or if it's actually one of the guidelines encoded in the law that defines the offices of the presidency. But he has not relinquished direct ties to his own business, which means that he's personally still getting money, which you're not supposed to do because it creates a conflict of interest, from his businesses that have international relationships. Emoluments clause, emoluments clause, emoluments clause. Go out there and remind Trump supporters to dig up the emoluments clause. So, Area 51, and this question of is Donald Trump a racist or not, I think we're both encouraged. In other words, the Area 51 thing was sort of like a third-party deal. Did it come from the deep state? Did it come from friends of Trump? Did it come from friends of Epstein? Who knows? But it definitely got to the top of all the trending trends, and I think successfully worked to keep people off topic. The question of Trump being a racist, because in my opinion, it's been asked and answered, and answered since 1973 was once again used in a demagogic way to whip up both sides. Here's the thing. It's not just about whipping up your own party. If you're pushing the opposition's buttons so that they get all riled up and got to spend time retaliating to whatever button-pushing things you're doing, and they're not achieving their previously stated goals, that's demagoguery. So, of course, Trump is going to throw a big, fat dog whistle bone at his base. Of course, Trump's going to reactivate the whole question and make people spend time debating each other over whether or not he's a racist. But from the fact that when he first became president of the Trump organization and he overtly screened applicants for units in his buildings and screened them in a biased, anti-black-skinned way, doesn't matter what he said. It's funny. It's really funny because the contemporary defense to Trump's tweets over the weekend telling the squad of four to go back to the country they came from, it's a brilliant piece of self-delusional, bending over backwards self-rationalization. Because they dare invoke the biblical statement that, only God could judge, so what are we doing judging him? They dare to invoke I think this is also somewhere rooted in the Bible, although not in the wording as presented here. It's not the words they say, it's their actions. I'm sorry, but in 1973, Trump's actions clearly confirmed back then that he is racially biased against black people. Now, what do racists do? Savvy racists who want to survive in our contemporary society, they seduce black people into supporting them. How many racists in your own personal real life have you ever been like, that guy's motherfucking racist, but he's got that one black friend, so maybe he's not. Right? Like, that happens. That's a real thing. And we can see it. The apologetics, there was whole waves of memeing about this and just general discussion on the internet. And there's this great picture being passed around as proof that Trump isn't racist. And it's Trump with, I think it's Reverend Jesse Jackson and one or two other prominent black rights leaders from the 80s. Now, that's not proof that he's not a racist. That's evidence that in order to recover from being exposed as a racist in the 70s, Trump got savvy and started to ally himself to ethnic people. Mind you, the ones that he allied with all tend to be wealthy, right? Now, I'm not trying to throw shade at the people in the photograph at all. I'm just saying he chose people who he had enough common ground with that he could, wiggle his way into convincing them that he's not racist. But I digress. So the very question, the very act of him throwing that question out, go back to the country you come from. He was savvy enough to bookend it with, and then you can fix the problems there. But he had to, it was like this reverse compliment sandwich. The compliment, or the not so, because it's not really a compliment, the not so negative thing that he included as sort of like, I'm going to pinpoint this as the reason why that wasn't a racist statement, was go there and fix those problems. But where's there? Shithole country. That's a pretty racist thing to say. I mean, ask any white person, would you be offended if a dark or brown skinned person, a black skinned person called America a shithole country? And just watch how lividly pissed off they might get. Okay? But it's okay to call Somalia a shithole country. Never mind how deeply involved the U.S. military is in causing all that problem. Somalia is one of those places, along with Yemen. It's like, that's just been a clusterfuck of proxy wars on top of proxy wars on top of political manipulation on top of, arms running and profiteering. But it's a shithole country because of its quote, socialist policies? No, that's a load of horseshit. So, in my humble opinion, that was Trump throwing his own distraction grenade. He doesn't care if you call him a racist. He'll just saddle up to whatever, he'll just point to his Black People for President supporter group, because there's Black people for Trump for president. How many of them have peeled away? I would love to get a number on. But there's a whole, like, group. Remember those? I haven't heard from them in a while. They haven't been visited in the mainstream media in a while, which is fascinating. But there was those two really adamant, really cool-sounding black ladies that were black ladies for Trump. Don't know what they thought of him before he ran for office, but they jumped on the Trump bandwagon right away. Haven't heard from them in a while. I wonder, are they still black ladies for Trump? Are there still, if Trump held a rally today, would we still see that really absurd marginal 3 or 4 black men in the audience panel behind him holding up, black voters for Trump signs? Or are they getting harder and harder to find? See, Trump doesn't care if you call him a racist. Racists don't care if you call them a racist. That doesn't upset them. They know that they're racists. They're proud to hate someone because of their imaginary race. And they want you to punch them in the face, yo. Nazis wanted us to punch them in the face. Why? Because they thrive on violence. That's the whole object of dividing ourselves according to quote-unquote race. They thrive on the violence that emerges. They thrive on the power that can be garnished by oppressing the other. All right, my friends, we're going to cliffhanger it there and come back to part 3, which is, I really need to visit the squad themselves and talk about how they reacted to Trump's little red herring distraction bomb. Thanks for tuning in. Hang tight. Part 3 is coming up soon.
And that is the latest madness from behind the orange wall. Thank you for listening to GMT, a special segment of the Almost Daily Zencast. Stay woke, Trumptopia. Stay woke.